As a kid, I was like really fit, really active. Then I got some bad sort of lower limb injuries. I broke me leg. When that recovered, I then broke a bone in the top of my knee. So that put us out of the game for quite some time. So I was on crutches for 12 weeks. As you can imagine, being on crutches for 12 weeks, physical activity was non-existent, piled on loads of weight. You've probably seen a few photos floating around Instagram where I just went,
Oh, I haven't.
I'll have to show them. I was huge, like massive, and just struggled. And then at this time, all me close friends were joining the army. They were going to Afghan and stuff like that. And I was just like, I need to get a grip here. I want to get in the army. I want to get away and do stuff. So I was like, I need to just get a grip. Started doing sort of physical training, and then the sort of PT stuff came into place when I was in the Coastal Guard. So I'd done probably about 6 years at this point. Smashed the gym out twice a day, like really fit and active. And then an opportunity came up for a PTI course, and they wanted to put someone else on it who was a bit of a laugh and a bit of a joke, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll just throw this guy on because it'll be funny watching him beast people." And that just didn't sit right with me at all. I was like, "Nah, this bloke doesn't even go to the gym. I'm in there absolutely grafting away, like setting the example," and it just got thrown in my face. So I was like, "Okay." Spoke to the call man because I played football at the time. The call man was like, "Look, I'll give you a chance and opportunity." And then from there, I done the PTI course, and then just fell in love with coaching and delivering and PT and just everything to do with it, nutrition, like the absolute works. And then come full circle, I'm here today.
I think that's a familiar story to a lot of people. So basically, you was a secret fatty,
Yeah.
and once you've got into that flow of training and that long goal, that just became that North Star for how you just conduct your life, right? And it just evolves in that process. It's really interesting because I don't think you're the first person to tell me that or say that. And there's so many other people that said a similar thing where they've been in the position where they're like almost had that pivotal moment where you go, no, this isn't going to be how I'm going to live anymore, or this isn't going to be your opinion of me after this course. It just goes from there. What would you say was the mental shift to say, finally, I just want to take control of this. No one's going to call me out. Because obviously that's stayed with you now. Would you say it's more of a mental game than a physical?
Yeah. So at first it was definitely a mental thing. I was just happy just floating along as a kid, just doing whatever. And then when I'd seen all my friends doing all the cool stuff, they were joining the army, they were going to Afghan, all that sort of stuff. I was like, I'm missing out here. And for what reason? I'd always wanted to be in the army. But at that point, because I was overweight and I was fat and I wasn't fit at all, I just thought, what's the point? And then when I started to see all my friends go away and they're doing all the cool stuff, I thought, I'm missing out big time, yeah. And I want a piece of that. And then as I've started to train, I've started to feel better, started to feel mentally better, in a better place. And then it just went from there. And I think that's quite a common theme in the fitness industry. And that's probably why doctors can prescribe PTs for mental health problems now, because it's got such a positive effect on people's mental health.
Okay, so let's say I haven't trained and theoretically I'm a beginner, where do I need to start looking then in order to get this sort of mental adjustment? How you can't just wake up one day and say I'm mentally now
Yeah.
stronger. How would you say is like the first step? Let's imagine I've let myself go a bit, I haven't trained and I want to get back into it. What do I do? What's the starting ground, would you say, is a starting
I
point?
think having a goal is definitely the number one starting point. If you've not got a goal, then you've got nothing to work towards. And I found that in this exact moment in time for myself. I've just finished an Ironman. I've not actually got a goal set. I've not got any competitions booked, and I've lost that motivation, as we would call it, to do this structured training. And it's quite difficult at the minute because I've got nothing to train for. So I can fully understand people when they say they're just not motivated or they just don't want to train. I'm fortunate enough to have lived this cycle before, so I know that I'll just set a goal and then that'll be me back in working towards that. So I think setting a goal, and I think it needs to be a challenging goal as well, because with no set a goal to run out the front door within 30 seconds, and then like that's well achievable. So I wouldn't focus on that. Whereas if I make it challenging, I'm probably going to be more than likely to stick to it and want to achieve it even more. So yeah, I think the number one thing is just set a goal, and then you wouldn't build on from there. You surround yourself with like-minded people, and who have got the same sort of goal, which will then not force you to train more, but you'll be more inclined to train more. If you're in a group of 5 people and they're all training for the same thing, let's say the CrossFit Games or let's say an Ironman, then if you're not training, you'll feel left out and not part of that sort of clique, so you'll be more inclined to train. But I think it all starts off with just setting a goal.
I'd probably say, and we've had a lot of people who say similar things to that. And to be honest, I think, and you just mentioned it there at the end, which was like have that accountability. If you can find training partners, that helps from an external perspective because obviously they will drive you to carry on when it's difficult, when it's raining and stuff, and someone's out there training. You've made a commitment to train with that person. It keeps you a little bit more accountable, and I think that can help. And obviously now there's a group for everything, right?
Yeah,
If you go on Facebook or that, you'll find someone who wants to do what you're doing, and most of the time you don't even have to pay anyone. But then that's always an option as well. If you want to pay for a coach, I think it could be a person that just dials in what you need to know, even if it's only for a month or
yeah,
two, gets you moving, gets the cogs working, and then these things don't happen overnight, right? I always think back to doing a 10,000 word dissertation for a degree. Like you don't just write 10,000 words. You do a little bit every day, and then eventually you end up with 10, 15,000 words, right? But it takes time, and you just have to. And I feel like that's the same thing with
oh yeah,
training.
absolutely,
You just got a little bit more, and then before you know it. And I think Spence said this as well. It's like all of a sudden you don't want to go out drinking. Now you
yeah,
don't want to eat the bad food because you almost got momentum. But it's about getting those wheels turning. It's about finding the options available to get that first cog going. Yeah, I like that, mate. I want to switch gears slightly and talk about your training
yeah.
specifically now, because that was a good side quest we went on about beginners. But what I want to know is in my eyes, how I've known you is being the CrossFit army CrossFit athlete, so to speak, and now you just switch gears into Ironman triathlon. What made you go? I'm just gonna. And I seen Liam doing the same thing with High Rocks. What's made you like take this new sport on?
So a bit of a side dish, yeah. I'm like really impulsive, and if someone tells us that I can't do it or they put some sort of bet on it, I'm like, okay, let's do it then. So my best friend, he had already signed up for the Ironman, and he said, oh, let's get signed up for an Ironman. I'm like, nah, I'll focus on other things, and he's, oh, you shite bag, and I was like, okay, if that's it, I'm in. Let's do an Ironman then. So it was mainly just it was weird, yeah. I'm just so impulsive and like I just wanted the challenge. And then when I looked into it, I was like, I try to do the standard thing where you look into it and try and convince yourself out of it. And then when I couldn't do that, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And then all my closest friends here were doing it at the same time as well, same race. So I thought, why not? I get to do training with my best mates, get to spend and have this experience with my best friends. It's not actually that bad. So then I just switched across and started training the endurance and the Ironman sort of stuff. But it was off the back of just being like really impulsive.
Yeah. So you finish one thing, you pick something up, and then you go.
Yeah.
So I was curious because I've never really delved into it, and certainly not that sort of distance. How has it changed in terms of your training? I guess you've noticed a number of things when you've stepped away because obviously there's significantly less strength work. What would you say is the biggest differences?
Yeah, so that strength work is absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head there. So at the start of the sort of training block, training cycle, I was still doing sort of 2 to 3 strength sessions a week, which is fine. But then as the volume and intensity increased on the endurance side, I just didn't have the time or the sort of capability to maintain the strength training. So that sort of, as one increased, the strength training decreased, which is what you would naturally expect for endurance sports. And then in terms of the strength training as well, the my strength just decreased so much. I remember like before I even started doing the Ironman training, I put 160 on for a back squat or whatever it might have been, and that was a decent weight. And then when I finished the Ironman, I was doing deadlifts at like 120, and I was like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. Like, why is this so heavy? And it's just obviously the adaptation. I've ramped it up on endurance, got really fit aerobically, but then the strengths took a hit because of that. In terms of like training times, though, I would say when I was training for CrossFit Both, I'm maybe getting 2 hours a day. Maybe if it's a good training day, maybe get a 2 hour session in and then an hour and a half or an hour session in. So maximum you're probably looking at sort of 3.5 hours in a day for the sort of strength side for the CrossFit or the Both or whatever it might be. And that when I was doing the endurance, some days you're putting in 4 to 6 hours. per day on endurance, and then when that adds up over a week, it certainly adds up. And if you just think of that over a week, there's just not much time to get strength training in when you're doing sort of 16 hours of endurance training a week.
Yeah, interesting. I was going to ask, so, now you've done both and you've obviously, that's not just dipping your toe in. I mean, doing 4 hour sessions is far more than I think an average person who just wants to do an Ironman. That's wanting to compete in an Ironman. So what I'm curious to know is what have you found more enjoyable? Where are you going to go to now? Is it just stick to the triathlon, or are you now, I'm a bit weak, I just want to put on a bit more size? Like, where are you now in your mind about where you want to take your training?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stick to triathlon and do the various different events under there. I'll probably not do another full Ironman just because it just had such a big impact on everything in my life. It completely consumed my life. I'm very much all in to start off with, but this was just like, and because I knew how much I had to be all in, it just took over everything. And I was going home on a weekend and then having to spend the weekend doing training. So it did take a massive impact on that. Yes, I reaped the benefits when I got a half decent time, but the training was ridiculous for that. So I think I'm gonna do some shorter distances now. So go into the half Ironmans and the shorter distances and concentrate on that through the army events as well, and then do some civilian events. In terms of like strength work, now that I don't require that much endurance training. I'll still do quite a lot, but because it's not at the entire the sort of volume of a full Ironman, I can add a little bit more strength training, especially now that it's like what we'd call off season. So I'll definitely be doing a lot more strength work during the off season, and then as it gets closer to the race, then obviously the strength would decrease and then the endurance will increase, but it'll just not increase to the level that I did for the full Ironman, just because
Yeah.
there's no requirement for that.
What would you say would be your advice to people that potentially are looking at doing an Ironman? Would they be better off starting at smaller distances and then building up, or would just go all in and be done?
It depends if they want to just if the goal is just to do an Ironman, that's it. Pick VG, then they could probably just go all in and just do an Ironman. What I think would be better would be to build the training up in training blocks, and then do the shorter distance, the sprint, and then the Olympics, then the half Ironmans, and then build up to a full Ironman. I'm not saying that has to be the way that it's done because I've proven that it doesn't, but at the same time, like, that would be like a natural progression, the same way we would look to naturally progress sort of any sport. As like in the CrossFit world, you do the open, then you would do the quarterfinals, semi-finals to try and get the CrossFit Games. The same way that there's nothing stopping anyone to go from the open to the CrossFit Games standard. But yeah, I would definitely say, if we're thinking about like advice to give to people who are wanting to do a full Ironman, I would say just concentrate on the basics. Don't overlook them, and I think we can apply that principle to sort of any sport, especially in the CrossFit and the BORF world. We see far too often people try to progress to bar muscle ups when they can't even do a pull up properly, and then people get injured, and then they fall out of love with the sport, all because they didn't just do the stepping stones that they should have done to hit the correct hit the correct progressions.
Yeah. What is your nutrition like? Is it good? How's that?
I didn't really look into nutrition as much until I started like ramping the training up, and then when I looked into nutrition, I thought, well, actually, like, I've got my nutrition completely wrong here. I was focused on let's get the whole meal foods in. So I now look at nutrition in two different ways. So I look at nutrition as like daily nutrition and then performance nutrition. And to me, they're two different things. So daily nutrition is we're trying to be healthy. We're trying to eat whole foods. We're trying to limit supplements. We're trying to limit junk food. I'm not saying like completely take them out. I still have the odd McDonald's and Nando's or whatever it might be. But I thought before I started, let's eat properly. And then as I went into the endurance training, I realised performance nutrition then comes in. When I'm sat on the bike for 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, I can't be eating like a sweet potato with tuna or rice or whatever it might be, because the body just can't use that food as fuel. So I then had to look at what the body needs for fuel over what the body needs on the day-to-day basis. So it changed quite a bit then. If we looked at it from like an outside perspective, it probably became unhealthy around training, or what we would deem to be unhealthy when I'm eating like high sugary gels or Haribos around training. That wasn't daily nutrition, that was performance nutrition, because that's what the body needed to perform optimally on the bike or whatever that might be. I think people get a little bit confused. I've had numerous conversations with people where they're saying, like, on the Ironman, stop and just eat half a pizza because it's full of carbohydrates. And yes, the body doesn't digest it fast enough. It can't use it as fuel. And then by the time it is digested for fuel, it's too late. The race is finished. And you have to eat the higher sugary stuff to fuel the performance. So it changed quite a bit, even in terms of going from the sort of bar for CrossFit to the Ironman sort of stuff. It changed massively. There's the requirement for like high sugary carbohydrates and the sort of immediate energy in a CrossFit workout is not that much. If you think about how carbohydrates work, in a 10-minute sort of CrossFit workout, after you've had a normal day of nutrition, you probably don't need the high sugary carbohydrates. Whereas if you're on the bike for 3 hours, you're going to burn through all the carbohydrates that you've had in the day, and you need to start getting the high sugary carbohydrates in to fuel the rest of that workout.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. On addition to that, then, what supplements do you normally take?
Creatine is like an absolute must for me. I've been supplementing with creatine before, during, and then even now after the Ironman. Other supplements which I now take pretty much all the time is electrolytes. I noticed a massive difference in performance from before taking electrolytes to after taking electrolytes. Very crampy normally, and that comes with just obviously the strength training, the hydration, and electrolyte balance as well. So I now take electrolytes, and that's sort of issue out. And then sometimes I take protein if I require it. What I try to do is I try to get all my protein through whole foods like you should, and then where I'm in a deficit of protein for that day, then I'll look to supplement that through either clear whey or protein, or the sort of whey isolate.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and then you've got like the carbohydrate powder and the gels. They're massive in the endurance world, and I think, yeah, I'll be lying if I said that they weren't absolutely necessary for endurance sports. Like, people, we've not got the luxury of having baskets on the front of our bikes doing these competitions where we can just have like loads of food in. So gels are handy. That in there, you have the gel and then you can throw the wrapper straight in the bin. So they're very handy, and they're very effective as well.
Nice, strong, mate. And I think in terms of CrossFit, was there anything different, or just apart from the electrolytes like you just mentioned there, did you have anything different, or was it the same?
I think because of how long the CrossFit workouts were, I didn't really feel like I needed anything else or anything different. So I just carried on
Yeah.
as I would.
And no more daily stuff or bedtime or anything?
Sort of zinc and magnesium, that sort of helps with immune and in sort of your sleep as well. And then, because as you can tell by the glorious accent, I'm from the north of England, we don't get much sun. So I always take vitamin D3 as well. And that's just because I've got no like objective evidence that I'm deficient in it, but being from the north of England, we tend to not get much sun, and that's like a common factor. Hence why a lot of the soldiers now, especially with Catterick, are being issued with the vitamin D3, because they're deficient in it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, mate, I'm going to switch gears slightly and put the Ironman stuff to
Yeah.
bed, and talk to some other things, and basically explore a little bit of some other things that are happening at the moment. What we must have seen at the recent CrossFit Games and everything with that, and the sort of after effect. What's your thoughts on CrossFit at the moment as a whole? What would you think about
So
it?
when I first started doing CrossFit, I started doing it because of one word, and that was community. I had a huge community. I felt like everyone was pushing in the same direction, and everyone wanted to do the same thing and achieve the same thing. How I see CrossFit now is slightly different. I feel like they progressed the standard too far to make it too unachievable for the daily person. If you look at some of the movements a few years ago, they started off with handstand walks, and now they've got them doing stuff which gymnasts train for, it's absolutely fine. That's how sport progresses, but it just makes it too unachievable for the sort of daily CrossFitter. And I think that's shown even more with how successful High Rocks has become now. High Rocks is like extremely simple, and I think that it's taken on a lot of the CrossFitters because of that reason. It's really simple. It's more of a community. Everyone can do it. We know the standard. There's no like left or right. So I feel like that's why that is more successful now. Yeah, and obviously you must have seen what happened at the last CrossFit Games where someone died as well. That didn't sit right with me. Looking at it from an outside perspective, from someone who does a lot of swimming or water swimming as well, I feel like they could have done a lot more to help save that life. And then the sort of the aftermath as well felt very much like everyone had their own reasons, but from what I've seen, it very much looked like CrossFit were trying to get as much money out of the competition as possible, which is a shame, really. I would love to have seen the event stopped and thinking about the athletes and all the rest of it and done it at a different time. But it felt like they were taking into account of what CrossFit wanted rather than what the athletes wanted. I don't. Obviously, everyone's got their own opinion on that. That's just my opinion from that sort of perspective. And I don't know. I just feel like a few years ago was a much bigger community than it was now. I just feel like it's all about money now, and
Yeah.
that's what sport does, which is a bit of a shame. But it's not a bad thing. It keeps people moving. It's functional. And people enjoy it. So yeah, it should absolutely still be a sport, or it should still be a type of training. But yeah, that's just my view on it.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely been a shift in, and obviously we can look at CrossFit from two different angles, right? You've got like CrossFit.com, functional movement conducted at high intensity across modal domains, right? For people that need general physical preparedness and they need that daily variation of exercise and stimulus to target all the components of fitness. And I think that classic CrossFit and then what they were actually trying to do in the CrossFit Journal, and
Yeah,
I think that still, to be honest, is literally is where, and you can say about High Rocks, you can say about F45, but really it's all come down to what started at that moment
yeah,
there. And obviously we now have a load more fitness trends because of
yeah,
that.
definitely.
And then you got, which is, by the way, let's be fair, they've really changed the whole of the fitness industry. Let's be absolute. Any
Yeah,
gym now,
agreed.
there's a weightlifting rack. Every single thing you can think of on social media is probably a derivative, except from probably bodybuilding, that has come from probably
Yeah,
CrossFit. If this would agree, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, on the other side, you've got the CrossFit Games, which was basically let's test the fittest people on earth. But now it's just got, and this is again, it's just my opinion, and I think you're right. These movements that they're bringing into it, the CrossFit isms, if you like, crossover double unders, and just weird stuff, man. That, to be honest, it doesn't even test fitness. It's just, it doesn't make any sense because the whole idea of testing fitness is to measure people's ability, physical ability to do stuff. I feel like they're so skill based at the moment that it just takes all that off the menu, and it leaves a lot of holes. To me, it now becomes more about, well, who's the fittest CrossFitter rather than the fittest person on earth. I don't know why, but there just seems to be a lot of stuff that doesn't really make sense. And obviously that can bleed into certain boxes, which is not what you want, because if anything, you want them coming from this side, not
yeah,
this side. And then you've got random 50-year-old people trying to do stuff that makes no sense. Unless you're going to the games, there's 5 other ways to get that stimulus, and all of them are
yeah.
safer, easier, and actually probably will get you more. So that's the first thing. I think the other one is it's just not being handled very well in the media. And like you just said there, it doesn't feel like it's as loved as it used to be. And that's fine, because most companies go through this stage of like around this bell curve. And if you were to be honest, it's probably on the latter part of that bell curve in terms of its popularity. At one point, we had CrossFit stores in like towns and stuff. I'll be quite interested to know if they can actually like pivot back from this and if they can capture something else. But like you said there, High Rocks is just so much more accessible. You think about it, it's all those things that CrossFit used to be, where you can go on CrossFit.com. It used to be completed in like a 9x9 grid square. All you needed was a Concept 2 rower and a rack, and you could do all the stuff. And that was very like inspiring to people just to go on to CrossFit.com. What's the workout today? See how you get on against other people in the world, and obviously things evolve, and yeah, you can't have the same thing over and over. But I think that's what made it so special at the time. Was there anything you wanted to add on to the end of that?
Nah, I completely agree. I think that the community do CrossFit very well, and they're the people who are getting these people who have never been to the gym before into the gym, getting them fit, getting them training, and they're doing all the right things. Yeah, I think at the sort of base level, and it'll be that base level that brings CrossFit back round.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's where they need to focus their attention. Out of curiosity, are we going to see you at a BOF competition again?
Potentially. So my training will be very centered around the sort of the triathlon and Ironman stuff. So the last BOF competition, I done like the 2K ski, which was fine. I done quite well on that, but that was just because I've got a good sort of engine, good aerobic base. And then it was like the front squat burpees over bar. I done that one.
Yeah.
Oh my god! I'm not even joking you because I hadn't done any sort of front squatting, any sort of lifting stimulus in a while. That generally wrote me training off for a week, and I've just thought, as soon as I've done that, I thought it's not even if my goal is triathlon, then stick to your lane. And if I try to dabble too much, just the training effect from the lifting weights when I hadn't been lifting weights, that'll ruin my life.
That's actually a good segue we can get into it here, and that's probably one of them about focusing on what your goals are. Is what other common mistakes athletes make in terms of prepping for competitions and just generally what you see them do. You already mentioned another one as well about focusing on some of the really high level skills and stuff, where really the basics. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that's just the main thing. Just focusing on the basics and then nailing them down and then progressing them from there. And that's like across any sport. If you look at any sport like swimming, you don't jump in the pool and decide, okay, I want to do 2,000 meters butterfly before you can even breaststroke or front crawl or tread water. So it's about getting them building blocks in place. Um, just not progressing too fast and just enjoying it. I think that if you try to progress too fast, you can definitely lose enjoyment because when you don't achieve what you want to achieve because you've not followed the progression, then it can be quite disheartening. But I think, yeah, just about sticking to the basics, building on the basics, and then following a plan. And I would always say if the people have not got the education or the experience, then go find someone who has. There's coaches out there for every single person. It's just about finding the right coach. And even with triathlon, you find a coach who can give you the information and the training that you need to perform best and achieve your goals. Likewise, with exactly what you're doing as well, if individuals are wanting to go down the CrossFit route, then finding a coach like yourself is absolutely perfect because that's what they need. Yeah, it's just about finding the right person who can give you exactly what
Yeah.
you require.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the way I see that is, and I've said it before, but it's worth repeating, is that if you look at any activity or anything in the world, really, there's always a scale of 1 to 10, about 10 being the person who knows everything about that particular sport. And they're the people who are professors, and they're the one who are teaching the trainers. They're the coach's coach. If you're a zero, if you're starting out as a beginner, or even if you're a five and you're like halfway through this journey of reaching your goal, someone who's a six or a seven, they can still help you. And as you progress and as you evolve, obviously, you then become almost in line with that person because now you know what they've taught you. You have the knowledge to back up, and maybe you even have the understanding about how you're applying some of these things. And then you've got to look and go, right, now I need another coach, or now I need to take my training a little bit more seriously. Maybe group programming works for you for a while, on a trajectory of getting to a certain point, and then you go, actually, in order to get better now, I need specific training for this specific competition with my specific genetic makeup and my abilities and my limitations. And obviously that comes at a price, right? Because you're now getting one-on-one time. I'm talking financially. So I think you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of people who can help other people, and it's just at the moment we're in such a crowded place when it comes to who do I trust and who do I go to, because there's knowing how to execute the movements and get into competitions. But then it's understanding the applied knowledge behind the rationale. And what I'm trying to say with that is just because you're really good at CrossFit doesn't mean you're a really good
Yeah,
coach. Because you might not understand why it works, because you don't have the fundamentals to understand adaptation. You don't have the backing of the expertise of what you learned during a degree. And I'm not saying that's essential, but generally, if you're going to train other people, you have to have an awareness about what stimulus is that causing in the body, and what does that mean for the next day, and what does that mean, because it all comes down to what you just said there. It's volume and intensity in a inverse relationship. Now which means if you do more volume, you'll have less
yeah,
intensity, and the opposite way around, right? And when I say intensity, I'm talking about in strength and conditioning. They mean like
yeah.
load, like heavy. It can also mean really hard as well. I get that. You could almost bring a third wheel and say intensity is how hard you're working in the session, and you can say load. But generally, in strength and conditioning, intensity just means how much you're lifting. So that's interesting as well. And I think that as you get better, that box of how much volume you can take and how much intensity you can take just grows. So then you can do more and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think what you just said there, finding a good coach, but making sure it's the right one to understand your needs and your wants and your goals. And then the other sort of mistakes athletes make is probably, as you've already said, just not doing the basics. It's so obvious to me that 90%, maybe I'm being a bit harsh there, but about 90% are just basics. Because this is the thing: anytime you do something that causes a stimulus, it can have a narrow or wide training effect. And I mean that doing a deadlift has a wide training effect because it does more than just improve your deadlift. It works core
Yeah,
stability, it works time under tension, it works synergist, as in supporting muscles. And that's why a lot of people keep on about these compound lifts. It's because they have a wide training effect. A bicep curl doesn't have a wide training effect. If we both spend an hour in the gym and I utilize a load of stuff that has a wide training effect, I'm going to get more bang for my buck over 30
yeah,
days.
definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is a sort of a follow on question because we talked about athletes there. It's almost like the same thing, but and we mentioned this at the start about where do you start as a beginner. Now, I'm curious to know about the person who never stepped foot in the gym, let alone the person who's talking about doing an Ironman. What does that person do? Is it what we've already mentioned? Is it just about finding the right group, having accountability, and having a goal? Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, I think so. And just being open to coaching as well. You see it all the time when people think they're above the standard that they're at, and then someone comes up with a bit coaching for them to help try and develop them, and they're just like, no chance. I've been doing the sport longer than you, so I know best. So I'm not going to take points off you. It's just that like narrow mindset that can really hinder people as well. And there's probably someone out there who's younger than what we are, who's got potentially better education and experience. And for like guys like us to turn around and say, "Yeah, I don't want your coaching," would be we're not only just like fobbing someone off, but we're also limiting our training as well. So just being open to coaching, and if someone gives you a coaching point and it's not very good, then you go, yeah, thanks, and then we don't use a coaching point again. But I think a lot of times if people are open to trying to help you, you might find some good information, and I've seen that within the triathlon world as well. People who have only done one Ironman or one triathlon, and they're coming up to me saying like, "Oh, you thought about doing this with your shoes, or I thought about laying your kit out like this, and or taking on this nutrition, or doing this or that." And I've been like, "Oh, actually, I've not thought about that." Even people who have never done triathlons, but have watched videos and they've picked up on things and they've went, "Oh, how you thought about this?" And I've went, "Actually, I've not." And then I've tried it and it's worked out really well. So yeah, just being open to being coached is massive as well. Even when you've got that fear, if you're brand new to the gym and you've never stepped foot inside of a gym, just being open to being coached is absolutely huge. And you'll see that for a beginner as well. We'll get like the beginner's gains as well. So they'll see an even bigger bang for the buck if they are being coached, as opposed to someone who's just going into the gym and cutting their own. Someone who's going into the gym for the first time with a bit of structure, with a bit of guidance, will see like huge bang for the buck in comparison to someone who's just winging it.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I always try and get back down to first principles with whenever I'm trying to break down something like this because it's a bigger question than just yeah, you just got to set a goal. I think, and I've mentioned this before, but actually, when I've re-looked at it, I think there's like a trifecta of things you need in order to create success, and it's probably actually not just training; it's probably life, which is one, you need consistency, which is basically doing it every day for a long period of time. You need effort, so it's not just turning up; it's actually putting the effort in when you're there. And I think the last one, and I didn't really have this because I thought those two would be enough, but then I realised you could spend your time putting a lot of effort in doing the wrong thing. So I think focus is actually as well is really important, and that focus comes from, like you just said there, doing the right training. If you need a training plan, 'cause you don't know what you're doing, then you can like ChatGPT will give you something really basic. Like Google will provide you some answers. And it sounds funny, but you could Google now a strength program, classic strength. It will get you results. I guarantee it. If you follow the right one, like Mark Rippletoe, starting strength, do that, you'll get stronger. And there's information available. Now, it's only going to take you so far, right? Because, like we just said there's going to be a point where those basic beginner gains are going to you're going to plateau. It's going to happen, and you're going to have to start looking at other opportunities to identify where the issue is. But it all comes down to so that's the focus part. The consistency part, I believe, is having that purpose and that reason and that goal. If that's strong enough and you have that there in your mind, in your subconscious, it's going to help you turn up every day, and you're going to be like constantly thinking about it because it's driving you, right? And I think the effort part in the end is like when you turn up for these sessions, is almost that accountability, like you just said there. It's like when I am there, I'm going to put in everything I got. And if you've got someone else in the room with you, it helps you put a little bit more effort in. Same way, I don't know if you noticed this, but I used to train in the garage during the old COVID period. It's just not the same. You don't get the same output as what you did when you was at a box, like people like high-fiving you and come on. So yeah, that effort thing, I think again is just setting you, it's the environment, it's getting yourself in the right environment. And it can also be like, when you think about it as well, physiologically, it's about having the right food at the right
Yeah,
time. It's about being in peak condition. It's about sleeping. It's about making sure that your body's ready to give you that effort and have the energy available to have the best session you can. And you can only do that if you sleep right, eat right, drink right, and you're prepared to go in and smash that session
yeah.
out. I just went in on a tangent, maybe, but it's something I've been thinking about. And I think those three things are absolutely key. But I'm going to change gears slightly because I'm going to talk about more about the actual movements now. We're going to get really tactical. What's the five? What would you say is the five essential movements for anyone that just wants to get into training? Where do they start? Look, I just wanted to go to the gym now. What 5 minutes should I be doing?
So, yeah, I think it's very goal dependent, and you could just fire from the hip and just say the foundational movement patterns. So you could do some sort of squat, some sort of lunge, some sort of hinge, some brace, rotate. That would get you moving in the right direction if you want to just get into the gym. If we're on about being specific to a sport, then you would have to look at the movement patterns that them sports do. Obviously, for CrossFit, you've got like a huge area of like movement that we need to cover. For something with endurance sports like triathlon or running, or it might even be cycling, we've got a very like limited amount of movements that we could do to be effective in that sport. So I think if I was to pick my five favourite exercises, is that, would that be
Yeah,
suffice?
say favorite. Go on. Yeah,
So some sort of lunge variant, like a Bulgarian split squat, or like just a standard split squat. Some sort of like Nordic curl or some sort of hamstring curl. Obviously, that you've got loads of movements there to hit the posterior chain up. Some sort of plank or plank variant. Course, if you look across the board, course massively undertrained. I feel like plank, you get a good bang for your buck. It's not very technical. You get down in the prone position on your elbows, engage your core, glutes, and quad, and that's you're away there straight away. Some sort of pull up. I think pull ups a great movement for the upper body, and that can be developed and there's progressed and regressed as much as it needs to be. And then the final one would probably be some sort of like deadlift or RDL. Again, very heavily posterior focused. I get that.
mm.
I know within my own training, I've been training strength conditioning for years now, and I find that lower back injuries, they come about when I don't hit the posterior chain up. I hit loads of posterior chain up, doing loads of glutes, loads of hamstring work, loads of core work, and then out of nowhere the lower back pain just disappears. That's my bias on the movements, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Completely, I completely get it, and a lot of them make complete sense when you think about it. And what did I say? I think I said before. I said like a burpee,
oh,
and I'm talking like I'm talking not just movement here. I'm talking conditioning. I'm talking like if I could
right,
only do 5 movements for the rest of my life, and how can I make sure that I'm hitting all the components, my energy system, cardiovascular system.
right,
So I say like probably a burpee, probably a rower, like rowing, because it just challenges the whole body, and you can do it in every energy system whilst maintaining muscle mass. I think a deadlift, uh, you could argue the toss between a deadlift and a squat, but probably a deadlift would be a tough decision. A dip, I'd probably do a dip because I think it's better than bench in terms of just overall stability. And it's tough, but maybe a pull up, maybe a pull up. It's really hard, isn't it? Because then you're debating whether to trade a squat for a pull up. It doesn't really seem to make
yeah,
sense. But yeah, it's cool. By the way, this is not obviously, this is, we're just making this up. If you take any of those 10 movements we just said and put them into some sort of strength program, you would probably get quite
yeah,
fit. And it's simple as that. And in fact, if you just did those movements as strength work, but then use the row and the burpees to do conditioning, because those two movements, row and a burpee, is like all
yeah,
body. They do the whole body. You probably get fit just doing those two
yeah,
movements. Like
definitely,
it mixed up into intervals, and like, it's so simple when you think. Obviously, if you're competing, then you have to think specifically. But I'm just thinking for generic people.
yeah,
Cool, mate. That makes a lot of sense. finish up because I appreciate that I've been like 50 minutes now, and I got a couple more questions,
Yeah.
mate, and then I think it's been valuable to a lot of people, and that's it's more on the coaching side now, and I'm curious to know. We just talked a little bit about starting off beginners, but what do you look at then when you do write a program for a beginner? Where's your like starting mat?
So I first like to establish the goals, because then that leads on to, I see it sort of, it's like stepping stones. So the first thing is establish the goals, whether that be like military fitness goals, or it might be selection, or it might be whatever it is. They want to run a marathon. And then from them goals, I develop a sort of testing phase. And then that testing phase will give me all the data that I need for the sort of minimum the first block of training, whether that be like a hypertrophy or a strength block or an endurance block, whatever it might be, and then I work from there. So yeah, so the setting the goals and then a testing phase for their specific goals, because you've probably seen it before where someone gets a cookie cutter program because they want to get fitter, but then what they actually want to achieve, they're doing it a training program which will not help them achieve what they need to achieve. And to train specifically, I feel like you need to do a good testing phase on what your goals are. Otherwise, you're just guessing. And if you're not testing, then you're guessing.
Yeah, I love that. That sort of needs analysis, as they say in the sports science world. Let's identify the point A, the point B, and then let's bridge the gap in the middle about what we need to do to move you towards that point B. I think that's quite essential. I'd say probably just one thing I'd add on the end of it, and it's also looking at what the requirements are of the sport, not specifically the difference between what you've currently got, but how does the sport work in terms of are they moving
Yeah.
laterally? Is it single arm? Is it double arm? What's the duration? How long are they working for? What energy zones? Da, da, da. And we know we need that needs analysis because that would just really help determine where we should be focusing our attention when we're writing that training program. I think that's really helpful, mate. I'm going to finish up one last question, and I always ask the same one, but I'm curious for you. Is there anything you purchased in the last year or two that has really been a game changer, and you think that all athletes should be, if they're not using this or they've not done this, they should be looking into it?
Two things. That's caught us on the fly, but yeah, two things I definitely think for any athlete, and that is a decent watch. I want to see a GPS watch. I get that not everyone's got the money for a GPS watch, but if you've got a GPS watch, then you can do the distance, time, speed very well on a GPS watch, and you can do that for running, cycling, swimming, hiking, whatever it might be. And then to go with that, I would say a decent heart rate monitor. If we're on about training specifically and training for goals, and really looking at that upper end of training, a heart rate monitor is like absolutely vital. So you see it so often where they should be training the zone two stuff, but that in their head they think they're in the zone two, or I'm in RPE 6 or whatever it might be. When in reality, if I had a heart rate monitor on, they could be in high zone 4, but they're perceiving that they're in zone 2 and they're not getting the training effect that's required. Whereas with a heart rate monitor, you're taking that guesswork.
Yeah, mate, that's brilliant. And I think actually that hits home quite well. Just knowing where you're currently working at and knowing if you're working in the right zones, right? And I don't mean just obviously the training zones for running. I'm talking about you're working at the right stimulus to cause the effect that you want. And you could only do that if you've got the data to hand. That's brilliant. I think a lot of people get that. Mate, I'm going to wrap it up there. Really appreciate you jumping on. I think there's been some valuable information, and I think people are going to enjoy it. Much appreciated. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime. And I wish you all the best, hopefully, for the next thing. Okay, mate. Take care, buddy. Have a good evening. All right.